What up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about my rewatch of Dragon Ball Super's Goku Black arc, and I'm going to be going through what I felt about it now compared to when I first watched this arc as a whole. Now, when I first watched this arc, I really liked it. There were some stuff about this arc that I didn't really like with the Super Saiyan Rage thing from Trunks and Trunks' high involvement in this arc. I know it was in his timeline, and he's pretty much a main character in this story, but I felt like with his level of power, he was way too weak for him to be, able to do anything. And they also kind of noticed that, so they gave him a BS, transformation and power boost. So it was kind of weird and ridiculous with, his character and how they handled that. But I thought as a whole, this arc was pretty good. Some stuff was obviously badly written, but as a whole, this arc wasn't completely bad, except for that part, like I said. Now, after rewatching it, my opinions on this arc has shifted, but not drastically. When I first watched it, I really enjoyed it. Now rewatching it, I still enjoyed it, but the stuff that I didn't like about it when I first watched it, I even more dislike it now. I just couldn't let it go. I felt like a lot of stuff in the story, I remember a lot of stuff in the story, but I felt like it was different than what I remembered. There was some stuff that I forgot and some stuff that I thought it went a certain way, but it didn't. I feel like the ending, I can see why a lot of people didn't like it. There's a certain thing about the ending that I personally don't have a problem with, and I don't understand why people are complaining about. But another thing I do kind of understand, I felt like they could have done it in a better way. And there's just a few things that this arc had problems in. But as a whole, it's not a bad arc. It is a pretty good, decent arc. There are definitely flaws, and I felt like if they fixed these flaws and they did it a little bit better, it would have been a phenomenal arc. But some people don't like it. I know somebody in my comment section once said that the Goku Black arc is the worst arc in Dragon Ball, which is ridiculous of a statement, seeing as how there were so many bad other arcs. The Resurrection of F arc was atrocious. In GT they had the Black Star Dragon Ball arc where they were going and flying and in space, and then they had the Super 17 arc that was also pretty bad. The Shadow Dragons arc was pretty ass too, except for all the way to Sin Shenron. And I also personally don't like the Tournament of Power, but since I'm rewatching this, I'm gonna get to that one next, and that's gonna be the last arc of this show. So I will be reading the manga then, and I will be doing my review on the manga's version because I've actually never really read the manga. The original ones from the show. I've only read after that some of the Moro arc and the Granola arc, though I have forgot some stuff from the Moro arc since it was like pretty much a few years ago at this point. But as a whole, the Goku Black arc honestly was not that bad. I felt like there was some stuff they could have done. Now, the few problems I did have was, one, the art style still looks bad. This show is, it pisses me off seeing now, especially with Daima, how good Daima looks, though Dragon Ball Super looks like trash. It just doesn't make any sense to me, the logic behind that. So you're making a show that is most likely not canon because of the events that are happening, and it's before Battle Gods and stuff. Even if you want to make it canon, it's just right after the Blue arc, which isn't that important. But then we have Dragon Ball Super, which is supposed to be the actual main timeline and something that's important, and you have the art style look like trash. And some people say, well, it gets better, it gets better, it gets better. And yes, it isn't as bad as, when, originally watching it and what people thought of it, but it is still pretty bad. It ruins the immersion. And a lot of times when I see these characters' models, like, looking off key, like, they're too scrawny, their face is weird, especially with Vegeta. I don't know what they keep on doing with fucking Vegeta. It pisses me off. He's in this weird slouching stance, and he looks so weird and awkward. His body is all weirdly shaped and contorted. It just does not look like Vegeta, and that stance just looks like he has bad posture, and he's like slouching and lazy, and he's falling down. It just looks horrible. And a lot of these fight scenes, though the choreography wasn't bad, I felt like with the art style looking bad, it kind of ruins the choreography. Now, normally I can look past, art style, because a lot of people say, well, the art was bad, but it's like, was the writing bad? Because a lot of times I feel like people shit on a show for the art when the show is still well written. There's a lot of shows that I've watched before, whether it's anime or cartoons that I've seen that have bad drawings, or like the way it's drawn or animated isn't that great, but the story is so amazing and compelling that it really makes me enjoy it. But that's for story. When it comes to, the choreography and the action, that's when the art style needs to look good. If it does not, then it's a problem. So a lot of times the art style did not look great. It should have looked perfect. It should have looked beautiful, because this arc was a very big thing when it first came out. and the way they market it and stuff. So I would have expected that it would have some top-notch quality, art style and animation, but it didn't. It failed on both of those fronts. And I know in the Tournament of Power they got better at that, but it's like really the last arc. You're telling me that I have to wait to the final arc of the entire series for the art style and the animation to be on point. That's kind of dumb. Also, one thing I really miss is in the old Dragon Ball, a lot of the characters would bob and weave and they would sway their body around to dodge attacks, right? And in the games, they call it the Sonic Sway. And they would do that all the time. But in Dragon Ball Super, I do not see that shit barely at all, especially the very fast-paced ones, which was one of my favorite things about, personally, about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z when it came to their fighting styles, them doing the bobbing and weaving thing. But now they don't do that much. All they do is spam ki blast, like, the consecutive blast that, Vegeta does, and then just throw a bunch of flurry of generic-looking punches and kicks. And sometimes the choreography is, phenomenal. It looks great. But I feel like more often than not, the choreography is kind of lacking. This arc did have some good ones with Goku Black, when he pulled out the sword and was able to cut up Goku and it exploded him and he stabbed him and all that stuff. It looked good, but I felt like some of the parts of the choreography could have been better if they had more of the Sonic swing shit and if they had better, like, different dynamic punches. They seem to have, like, a lot of repetitive, like, just, straight punches. And then the consecutive ki blast, I don't know what's up with their arms, but the character model with their arms moving when they shoot a blast, it looks really janky. It does not look good. I felt like the choreography wasn't bad, but it had a lot of room to improve. And I felt like it was definitely a step down compared to Dragon Ball Z. Because if this was in Dragon Ball Z, I think it would have been exceptionally beautiful. But sadly, this one was a little bit of a downer when it came to that. And the art style, like I said, I couldn't get over how bad they made the character models look a lot of times. Sometimes they look on point, but I think more often than not, it looked bad. And it sucks that I have to wait all the way till the final arc for the quality to look good. And I know a lot of people say, well, on the Blu-rays, it looks better, but it's like, really? I have to buy a digital Blu-ray just to watch this to look good? That's kind of dumb. And even the Blu-rays, from what I've seen, it isn't far better. It isn't like, oh my God, this is immaculate. It's like, oh, okay, it's definitely an improvement, but it still has problems because the art drawings are severely bad. And I don't blame the artists or the animators and stuff because they do have a short time schedule. I blame the company and Toriyama for going too quick on this project. Because I felt like with Dragon Ball Super, they took more time, like with Dragon Ball Daima, where they pumped in more money. They took more time for the animators to do their thing, which when they do, they make it beautiful. Gave them that free range. They could have made this look beautiful, but they were too quick on trying to drop out a series because they did Battle of Gods, then they did Resurrection of F like around like 2 years after, and then right after that they're like, yep, let's make a series after Resurrection of F. And I felt like they were too quick with it. They should have waited a little bit longer and they could have had better quality, but sadly this is what we got and we have to wait for shitty Blu-rays to come out, which most people are not going to buy these Blu-ray box sets just to rewatch the show again. And especially if it's a show like this where a lot of people have problems with it, they're not going to watch a show that they might not like just to see a little bit better quality, art style and animation, right? It's just dumb. But yeah, I didn't like that. I also didn't like the Super Saiyan Rage thing with Trunks. It was never explained. It came out of nowhere. It makes no sense why he had that. It makes no sense why he's so powerful. It makes no sense why he was able to do all of the stuff he did. And not only when he got that, he was able to defend himself, but they ended up having him destroying, Merge the Monsters, at least his physical body. Instead of having a Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, which made more sense story-wise, writing-wise, that makes more sense than him. He just somehow created a spirit bomb and put in the sword and killed him, which that was dumb already too. Where the fuck did he get the spirit bomb? He didn't even know what he was doing. How do you, by an accident, do a technique like the spirit bomb? It makes no sense. And then with the energy he would have had was been from like a few of the Earthlings. There was like, tens of thousands of Earthlings left, and he had enough power to generate in that sword to kill Zamasu when Goku took all of the Genki from the entire Earth and even the afterlife to defeat Boo, or some people say even the whole universe. He took that much Genki just to beat Boo, and Boo was still able to push it back until he got, his energy restored to beat him. Whereas Trunks is only taking the energy from literally the people on Earth, and majority of the citizens on Earth are dead. There isn't even millions or even hundreds of thousands of people left. So how are you going to get all that energy with tens of thousands of people to beat him? I just felt like that was stupid. And the only reason they did it was the whole story narrative was he's attacking Trunks' timeline and he's blaming Trunks. And then he wants to get revenge on Trunks. So Trunks needs to be the one to end him. But I felt like that was just dumb. If they wanted to do that, they could have just had it where, Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, even with his power, was struggling against, Merge Zamasu, and he jumps in to help him out, and then they both together end up taking him out. That way you can have him do it, but have it also logically, a lot more logical way to have it end instead of having it that way. That's just stupid. The Spirit Bomb thing was an ass pull. His power up was an ass pull. The victory was an ass pull. But the writing with the power scaling was pretty off the entire arc. Like we had, we had Goku Black and Zamasu merging to becoming Merge Zamasu, which we know fusion should be insanely more powerful, right? And with that power, they should have been insanely more powerful, but he loses in a beam struggle against against Vegeta and Trunks, and then he loses against Goku by himself, and he doesn't even go into his Kaioken form, and he just beats him and actually damages him, so it's not even like, oh, he was holding back, he got hurt from it. And then Goku was able to kick him to the ground by using Kaioken and, knocking out his Halo, which was his most dangerous weapon he had. And then you have Super Saiyan Blue Vegito against him, which he's struggling. Yes, Super Saiyan Blue Vegito was stronger, but he wasn't way stronger than him. So it's like, okay, so he's struggling before. It just makes no sense. Just look at it every way. First, we have Goku Black by himself stronger than both Goku and Vegeta. But now when he fuses, he's apparently weaker than both of them alone. And then they alone can harm him or do something to him. But then when they fuse and go into a blue state, they are stronger than him, but not by much. And then Trunks is able to actually finish him because even though, Super Saiyan Blue Vegito did, I think it was a final Kamehameha, which is their most powerful technique, he actually tanked that technique and flew up into the air. So he was able to withstand that. But then when Trunks did his Spirit Bomb sort of thingy, he was able to destroy his body. I don't get how he was able to do that, but they weren't. So that doesn't make any sense. And then Trunks being able to handle him, it's just all over the place. It's just shit writing. And power scaling does matter when it comes to writing. A lot of people try to ignore it, saying, no, writing is just about, the characters and then the story development and the world building. Yes, that is important, but this is also part of it. Stop saying this shit. Because anytime you watch like a show, right? If you watch a show where a character is struggling to beat somebody else that was way weaker, but then fights against an opponent that's way stronger and doesn't improve at all, but somehow it beats them up, you're going to be like, this is fucking dumb. This makes no sense. For example, like Cobra Kai. A lot of people love the show Cobra Kai, right? And they like it, but a lot of times the writing is very inconsistent with who wins in these fights. So like, for example, like Hawk, his character, he barely beat Robbie in the first tournament. He had a cheat and he got disqualified. Then got beaten by him easily in the mall. He got beaten, by Dimitri. He lost all his stuff, and then he went into the tournament in the fourth season and beat Robbie, even though Robbie got way better than he was before. And yes, he improved too, but Robbie had more time to improve learning Cobra Kai technique with already the Miyagi-Do, where he just started with Miyagi-Do, so he only had really mostly Cobra Kai and a bit of Miyagi-Do, yet he still won. And a lot of people are like, okay, that's a little weird. And a lot of the stuff in that show, people are like, oh, this character's going to win, but then when they lose, they get mad. Why? Because it makes no sense. They establish it one way, and then you see later on, and it doesn't, and they do another way, so it doesn't make any sense. So even people who are watching any movie, if you're watching an action movie or an action show, and they have a character beating up another character, and they easily beat that character, and then that character barely trains and comes back and somehow whoops him, you're gonna be like, that's fucking stupid. Same thing with Dragon Ball Super. So I don't know why people keep on saying you can't just use, power scaling for that. Power scaling matters. So the writing was horrible there. They could have put him in there where they did it a logical way, but they put it in the dumbest way possible. They just had him randomly pull up a transformation, randomly have him learn a technique, randomly have him be powerful enough to handle this threat that even a fusion of these two characters that are more powerful couldn't handle him. So it was just a big fucking mess there. His Zamasu's plan is kind of confusing too. Was he just trying to conquer that universe or the entire, all the universes? Then it's also a little confusing with how Zamasu works. So it makes no sense, how Goku Black stuff works, because think about it this way. They stated that Zamasu, the one that we see where he's the immortal one, he's from Trunks' timeline. That makes sense. But the one that Goku Black went to his timeline was from the regular main timeline, but from the future. But how did he go from the future to there when that Zamasu in their timeline still hasn't done the thing, and it was the future version of that one? We all know that that it can be the main one, because we know the timelines, they do, they do alternate timelines, right? So for him to be to do that, for him to be a future version, he would have to be from another alternate timeline going there. So it does not make sense how he can be from the future timeline of theirs. That's not how time works, unless you're doing the linear timeline, where I mentioned that a bit in my power scaling video of it, where I talked about how linear time and alternate timelines are two different things. Whereas like one is like, if you mess with time, it creates another branch of a timeline, an alternate timeline. Whereas linear time, where if you go back in time, mess with something, it messes up the present and the future. So that's how it would work. But they do have both of those, but that's only with the time ring. So it doesn't make sense how Goku Black did that and stuff. It's just confusing. And then, Beerus confused the hell out of everybody too with his, statement about him stating that, oh yeah, the butterfly effect, when we know that you go with alternate timeline stuff, like going through the past through a time machine will not do that. That doesn't make any sense. That's confusing. And then him stating, well, when a god destroys another god, it doesn't affect the timeline. It doesn't alter time. Yet then in the end of the arc, well, Whis basically states that when he killed Zamasu, that he created another timeline without Zamasu. So I'm like, wait. You said that when a god kills another god, it does not affect the time at all, or time stream, it doesn't affect it. But now you're telling me at the end that when Beerus killed him, it did. The fucker, are the writers stupid? Do they not understand what they're saying? You cannot say when a god kills another god that doesn't happen, and then literally the ending say, yeah, it literally happened. The fuck was the point of that statement? Then it doesn't mean anything. It's just confusing, and it throws people off, and then makes the writing look bad. And that's the big problem when you do like a lot of time traveling stuff. It gets very confusing. That's why I don't like time traveling stories, because it's like when you mess with time, it messes with the perception of reality, and then it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of there's always a paradox. There's always a plot holes. There's always stuff that doesn't make sense. There's always some confusing things, and it's not because it's just so complex. It's just because it's usually wrong when the writers do it. They write it convoluted and they write it incorrect, so it doesn't make any sense. So I really hate that idea, and I felt like they dropped the ball because they did with Beerus stating, keep on acting like it was a linear time with the butterfly effect, when alternate timelines would not have that butterfly effect really matter. Then him stating when a god kills another god, it doesn't affect the timeline, when it did. And then, Goku Black saying that he's from their main timeline, but from the future, but we know that's not how it works. It's just a fucking whole clusterfuck. It doesn't make any sense. There's somebody that tried to make sense of it. It's just a stupid plot hole, and it makes this arc sound dumb. And I know I'm shitting on this arc. I do like it. I will give more my feelings as a whole about it, but I do feel like this thing does ruin the writing because it makes it sound stupid with a lot of the stuff that happens there. And then the Zeno thing, I know they were setting it up for the ending, but I just felt like it was kind of pointless to put in the middle. I also don't like the fact that the Zeno button called the Zeno from another timeline. I felt like it was kind of dumb and makes him look kind of weak. I felt like they could have just had a Zeno. If he controls everything, he should have been a master of other timelines too. And even the one from that timeline didn't know what was happening, which is like, are you fucking kidding me? He's supposed to be the ruler of all of reality and all these universes, but yet he doesn't know that somebody's messing with his universe and time is getting fucked with. And then the new timeline got branched out. It's just weird. I felt like that was kind of dumb. I know a lot of people don't like the ending with Zeno wiping out everything. Personally, I felt like they could have just had it where Zeno wiped out Zamasu from the, timeline instead of, the timeline itself. I think that was a little stupid. I don't know why. If he's supposed to be this high level being, he should be smart enough and be powerful enough to selectively just pick, Zamasu and wipe him out. I know he was interconnected to the universe itself, but he could have separated him and just obliterated him from the time stream itself instead of, technically just wiping out the entire time stream. I felt like that was a little excessive. And then having, we saying we're going to go back in time before, Zamasu did all this stuff. We're going to go to when he got immortal and shit. And then pretty much, what's the thing called? They were going to have Beerus seal him up, but then by doing so, this would be a timeline where they have another Trunks and Mai there. So there's going to be two Trunkses and Mais, which I can see why a lot of people didn't like that. Personally, like for me with this end, it's a little hard for me to kind of judge it because I do think that having somebody like Zeno wiping him out of existence does make sense. It perfectly makes sense. People saying, well, why does Zamasu have to come back and then, fuse to it? Why not when he got destroyed physically? Why didn't he just die? Because he's still immortal, and that's how being immortal works. It wouldn't make sense if the being is immortal and you destroy him physically, and then he's just dead. it would make sense that he would come back in that way, and it makes sense for him to only be the only way to defeat an immortal being is to erase them out of existence, because immortal beings cannot be killed, but being wiped out of existence is not killing. So I get that, but I do think that they did dumb by making it go to another timeline back. All they had to do was have him wipe him out of the timeline and the universe instead of wiping out the universe. Then, thus, we could have had the universe still there, and we wouldn't have to have that. And if you want to be like, well, Trunks still lost everybody on Earth, all they would have had to do was have, Trunks and them go to Namek and get the, the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish, literally to wish everybody back. They could have literally got the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish either the Super Dragon Balls back, and then had the Super Dragon Balls to wish everybody back. They could have done some stuff like that instead of just doing it this way. I felt like this was the dumbest way to do it. But besides that, I felt like the arc was really good. I think it was fun. I think the story as a whole was pretty nice and decent. I really like Zamasu and Goku Black. I know a lot of people think Zamasu is annoying. They like Goku Black, but they're the same character. I like both of them. I thought they're really great antagonists. I also like his reasoning for what he was doing because of his hatred of mortals. I can't blame him. Looking at real life, how people act, people are fucking animals. I am kind of I have more of a nihilistic mindset myself. I think most people, majority of people, not everybody, but majority of people are dog shit, animals, and don't deserve good things. So I can understand him on his front, like how he thinks about mortals, even though they should have shown a little bit more about, his hatred. But remember, he's a Kai, he's been around for millions of years, and he's probably have seen countless planets and seen all of this horrible shit, and he's like, yeah, at this point, I don't care. So I can't blame him. If I was in his position, already right now, I want majority of the world population to be wiped out of existence. Like, I'm not even kidding. I think like 80% of the world's population should be wiped out. So I kind of understand where he's coming from. If he saw as much as he did, and for as long as he did, and seeing as how they give him this power and knowledge, yet they just use it for evil, I kind of would turn a little bit evil to it and be like, you know what? Let's wipe out all these assholes. I'm not saying I would, but I can understand it. So I kind of agree with him there. And then killing the gods, even though he was doing this for the gods, the only reason he was killing gods is because they were standing in his way. If they would, stand with him or let him do his thing, I don't think he would have killed them. But since they were standing in his way and he knew they would, he had to eliminate them. So I respect that too. But yeah, I think he's a cool character. I like Goku Black's design. I like his fit. He has the most dopest fit I've seen. He's so fucking cool. His attacks aren't that crazy unique besides the blades, but they're still pretty cool looking. I like the scythe. I like some of the stuff they did, like him cutting a dimensional rift and having those smoke clones, and then him creating the scythe and the sword, and then the explosions and stuff. He did a lot of cool stuff, but I also felt like there was a lot of things that they failed on when it came to his character and kind of were lacking when it came to him. But as a whole, he's not a bad character. He's actually pretty fun and enjoyable. So yeah, pretty much that's all I had to say about this arc. I felt like there was a lot of things they could have done better. They could have gotten rid of the Super Saiyan Rage, could have, had Trunks be there more of a supportive character instead of a main character fighting. They could have had, Zeno wipe him out in a better way, just wipe him out instead of the timeline. They could have had a way where they revived everybody back with their Dragon Balls, because this is Dragon Ball. They could have had a way where I also felt like they should have had that Zeno not be from another timeline. Just one Zeno ruling every universe and every timeline would have made him more powerful. I felt like the power scaling should have been better, especially once when he became Merge Zamasu. I felt like they shouldn't have been able to touch him at all in base. Like I felt, or like by themselves. If they were fighting by themselves, I don't think they should have been able to touch him. The only way I felt like they should have been able to harm him is by fusing. With Vegito, they should have been able to fuse and beat him, and I think they should have destroyed his physical body should have been destroyed by Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, but him as a whole should have been destroyed by Zeno. But their timeline Zeno, not having all the extra timeline shit, and I felt like the writing with the time stuff, it was a little bit better written and actually more properly written. I think it would have been better too as a whole. But that's all I have to say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next time.